Thank you. Now, our next speaker is Carsten Levisen, a linguist and linguistic anthropologist, a member of the Young Academy of the Royal Danish Academy of Sciences and Letters, and an associate professor at Roskilde University, Denmark, where he teaches cultural semantics, pragmatics, and discourse studies.
Thank you very much. I call this presentation Linguistic Worldview and the Cultural Semantics of Humour, and a case study on Danish Untranslatables. Okay, so en hund kom gående hen ad vejen. A dog came walking down the road. Så kom den til en transformatorstation. It came to a transformer station. Så satte den sig ned og kiggede på den, and it sat down and looked at it. Hunden, vejen, transformatorstationen i aftensolen, det var alt, der skulle til, og det var smukt. The dog, the road, the transformer station in the evening sun. That's all we needed, and it was beautiful. So this is a teaser, okay? So I'm trying to see if I can explain this kind of humor. But really what I would like to do is to see if I can make some headway in trying to combine linguistic worldview studies and humor studies. And my approach is the NSM approach, the natural semantic meta-language approach to language and culture, and also to cognition. My main case study will be Humour in Danish, and I'm saying Humour because this is the Danish word humour for humour. And my perspective will be on translatability and untranslatability. Just to give you a little bit of background, these are the 3 books that I've authored or co-authored. So one on cultural semantics in Danish, one on Creole studies, and one on cultural keywords. This is just to give you a sort of brief idea of what kind of work that I do. And yeah, so in keyword studies, I'm interested in Sapir's old idea of the lexicon as a sensitive index of culture. And the ethno-pragmatist in me is trying to do ethnographically informed pragmatics. And then finally, and this is the latest, sort of the newest thing that I'm doing, I'm now also working in post-colonial language studies. I'm interested in languages as socially active knowledges. I'm interested in metalinguistics, cognitive justice, and creolization. So what about translation studies? Well, I have to say that I'm not, I don't think that I'm a translation studies person yet. I don't know. I need to find out more about what translation studies is, but what I realize is that I constantly work on this issue of translatability and also commensurability, and I talk about translatables and untranslatables. So I don't know if it's translation studies, but there's a lot of translation stuff in that. The other thing is from Creole studies, there are so many interesting things coming out of that that would be very interesting to compare with what's going on in translation studies. I just brought you a few concepts here like relexification, metatypy, cryptodiversity, translanguaging, and what not. And just to give you one example that I won't have time to go so much into, I have actually also done a translation myself of Hans Christian Andersen's The Emperor's New Clothes into a Pacific Creole, and this is called New Falaklos Blow High Chief with Caroline Maresi last year. So I do have a little bit of a background here, but yeah, let's see how it goes. The interface that I'm going to try to see if I can make headway into is, as I said, humor studies and linguistic worldview. And I'm interested in what people laugh about, what they shouldn't laugh about as well, and how they laugh, when they laugh, where they laugh, and why they laugh, or why they don't laugh. Conceptualizations about who people are supposed to laugh with and supposed to laugh at. These questions. So it really speaks into something fundamental, I believe, to linguistic worldview studies, views of what is good and bad, values, taboos, ways of speaking, feeling, thinking, ways of living with others. And for all these three kinds of research that I do, I'm using the natural semantic meta-language approach. Some of you will, of course, know Anna Wierzbicka here, Cliff Goddard, and quite a lot of new research is coming out from this NSM research community. Lots of books and new work, and if you're interested, go to the NSM homepage where you'll find all these new things that are happening. But essentially the idea is this, that there are a few globally shared meanings, not many, actually very, very few. Then there are, on the other hand, lots of language-specific meanings, and in between we find sort of European meanings shared across Europe. Maybe the heart could be partly one of these, or meanings shared across, say, Melanesia or some other area. So this is, in essence, the idea. The research that Wierzbicka and Goddard and colleagues have done for a long time suggests that there are maybe only 65 translatables. Simple ideas such as I, you, people, good, bad, feel, want, know, do, happen, etc. that can really be translated. And then a couple of more we might add these, we call them semantic molecules. They might not be actually really universal, but we're trying to work out. There seems to be a need for most languages to have some words like women, men, children, also lots of body parts like mouth, hands, face, laugh, etc. The NSM approach to untranslatables is what I'm actually most interested in. The thickest of the words in the world, so to speak, if I can use thickness as a metaphor. I've worked a lot on cultural keywords, but now moving into cultural elaborations of domains. And that will be clear in a moment what I mean by that. But first, when we move to humor studies, there is a yardstick problem. We always end up agreeing that there is humor and sarcasm and irony and satire, but this is the yardstick problem. The only reason why we agree about this is probably because we speak English. Okay, so what we have found when we start looking at languages also outside of Europe is that humor is not among the translatables. Okay, humor is not a universal human concept, and also it is, frankly speaking, not a globally relevant topic. Okay? My good Chinese colleague Jing Daoye always says, I kind of know what humor is, but why would I waste time on it? In my fieldwork in the Pacific, there are lots of other things, not humor, but concepts related to something much closer to the English word trickery than humor. People wouldn't know what this is. Okay. At the same time, humor is a cultural keyword of English, for sure. This is also an interesting thing. If you have humor studies, even people who are from various different countries, you find so many people interested in humor in the English departments. I wonder why this is. So maybe in one sense humor studies are Anglo-centric for a good reason, namely that humor is such an important word in English. Now, this takes me to another problem or aspect of contemporary humor theory. It has sometimes been called the emic turn. Because if we just stay in the ethic world, the world where there are experts discussing humor and irony and sarcasm and all these established English terms, we might not really go as far as we want to. We should move emic we should get the folk perspectives, experience near concepts, ethnotypologies, and ordinary words instead of the terminologies, typologies, distant terms that experts sometimes deliver. And with this in mind, I would like to show you a few things that has been said about Danish humor. These people have done really great work, but they have stayed within what I call ethic perspective. So Friedman Hansen, for instance, says Danish humor is ironic. Okay, it's similar to British humor, a sanction in the service of egalitarianism and positive values, and that Danish humor is associative, a high willingness to follow along speakers' associations, aptitude for vivid visualization, a strong cultural tendency to fantasy. This sounds kind of right, but keeping it in these ethic categories bothers me a little bit. And here's Lundquist saying that the Danes have a low degree of gelatophobia. I thought it meant the fear of ice cream until I realized that that couldn't be true. It seems to be a low degree of the fear of being laughed at. Okay, so much for these ethic terms. You also use ironic, sarcastic, direct, no limits, and no taboos. It's really interesting, but instead of inventing new terms like gelatophobia, I think we should pay attention to folk categories, smaller words, and then of course, generally speaking, to OLTE, other languages than English, and OETAE, other Englishes than Anglo-Englishes. So these are two of my interests. And having deconstructed humor as a globally relevant topic, I thought this gives me a lot of great perspectives on Danish. So I started to look at the periphery of things, and I looked into Danish Untranslatables. What I found was that there is a whole series of laughter interjections and also a lot of what I call synesthetic humor metaphors. So this is what I wanted to do my case study on. Okay, so laughter interjections. What are they? Well, it's been said about Danish that it's one of the world's or Europe's most vocoid languages. It's full of vowels, a lot of vowels, and they can all be used to laugh with. We have lots of laughable vowels. Ha-ha, he-he, hee-hee, ho-ho, he-he, hoo-hoo, and ho-ho. Hoo-hoo is not possible, hoo-hoo might be possible. And then another paradigm where only tihi and tøhe are possible. It's very important for me to say at this point that these are not just representations of laughter, they are interjectionalized, conventionalized, so they have sort of life as words as well. I will now just go into a careful study of this particular laughter interjection, tøhe. This one. And I will tell you something that happened last year called Rullepølsegate, a scandal linked to this particular cured meat. In order to make this story interesting, I have simplified it so there's a socialist, a nationalist, and a liberalist. They're discussing. Okay. And the socialist says, kunne Pia Kjærsgaard dog ikke tage og snuppe et stykke med rullebølse? I wish this nationalist will eat some rullebølse, some cured meat. And then the liberalist says, did you just wish your political opponent dead? Take it back while we still can. And the reason for this was that 12 people had died from eating some kind of contaminated rullepølse that just the day before he said this. Okay, then it was almost a scandal worthy of the suffix gate, but then the socialists interfered and said, oh well, it was just tøhe. Okay, so this interjection, this laughter interjection, would turn into a noun a little bit unusual. But what I wanted was to try to find out what does tøhe then mean, because nobody talked about it after he had sort of said it was just tøhe. Okay, so I asked a lot of Danes what they think all these laughter interjections mean, and this is what they said about tøhe. I'll just read the English now. When something perhaps isn't that totally amusing, or going a bit too far but still a bit funny, an expression that something wasn't really funny, rather it fell flat, funny but also a bit not so funny, reaction on a plat, which is something like flat but it's not right, really flat, so it's another untranslatable that is used a lot, a flat, plat kind of humor. They said it was dad humor, something half perverted or dad-like, or perhaps more uncle-like. There's something old about it, an old man being amused about something funny. And there's some farmer style to it, a bit farmer-like. And this is interesting. Tøhe sounds like something you use to symbolize awkwardness. Okay, and this actually seems to be a very meta-discursive laughter interjections. People said it's something you say after something. You know you have been annoying. And this takes me to the following explication using NSM. I'm trying to define tøhe. So when I said something before, I said it because I wanted people to laugh. At the same time, I know now that some people here can think like this, there's not much to laugh about. I know that people can think something bad because of it, not something very bad. So especially this component C will give you an idea of why it is actually quite effective for this politician who maybe just had this dead threat against a national politician to say, oh, it was just a tøhe, something bad, you might be able to think of me, but not something very bad, come on. So I've done this with all my laughter interjections, so at least this is the plan. I think that they are sort of a catalog of interaction types that involve humor. So instead of thinking of them as just peripheral, I think that they're really a core way to try to understand Danish humor. Another paradigm that seemed to be really important in from the folk perspectives is what I call synesthetic humor metaphors, where the sense of humor is linked with other sense modalities. So you have a lot of these terms like sort humor, plat humor, tør humor, fed humor, lun. So black, flat, dry, fat, snug, cooked, sick, muggy, harsh, raw, sharp, etc. And there are lots more than this. Again, I think there is a paradigm here that needs to be studied, but I will only focus on black this afternoon because you might think you really do know what black humor means, but that is probably just the English black humor, because Danish black is very different from English black. Actually, from now on I will switch. I will not talk about black humor in Danish, I will only talk about sort humor, because it seems to be really quite different. I will go through 3 cases called Ass and Keys, the dog, the evening sun, the transformer, anarchy, cheese, and cats. First I just want to say a few things about the semantic history of sort humor that I have been able to dig up. So of course there's the French noir and the English black, and this is indeed where this translation loan into Danish originally came from, but it was reconceptualized through an encounter with the Danish speech at tale sort, to speak black, which is something like murky speech or nonsense speech. So really I'm trying to say, when it comes to humor, black and sort are quite different, I believe. So here is a good Danish expression, røv og nøgler, ass and keys. What on earth does that have to do with anything? Well, that is exactly the point. It is nonsense. it is jocular nonsense making. When I was in France and gave my talk at a Humour conference, the French audience suggested that the keys actually fitted into the arse or something like that. No, not at all, not at all. This is not what we thought. And then I also suggested there was some kind of wordplay. No, the Danes are not into wordplay at all. This is something the French are really good at. So this is just to say, the whole idea is that there is not, they don't have anything in common. That is the nonsense of it. And really, this dog from the famous Danish cartoonist Strid, we had never seen this dog before, and we will never see this dog again, and it goes to a transformer station and enjoys the evening sun. Okay, so this I think is Danish sword humor. I also witnessed a conversation at a local toilet at my university where I saw sword humor unfold. And I took pictures of it, but for your convenience, I have also translated it here and replicated it. So there's this guy saying first, anarchy is order without power. So a pro-anarchist statement at our university toilet. Then B says, come on, anarchy is every man for himself. You go and build a society where everybody thinks they're the king. Okay, sarcasm. But there is some kind of dialogue about the benefit of anarchy going on. C says, okay, so venner, take it easy, friends, commenting on the situation. And now there is a Danish black humor, sword humor intervention by somebody saying in English, I love cheese. and E, the turn E confirms that this is black humor saying, everybody who loves cheese, cats are in. And this er med, er in could mean get this, as in you get what kind of humor we are doing now. Okay, so I've also tried to explicate Danish black humor or sword humor. It is a bit longer because it's fairly complex, it's a very thick concept, so bear with me. But there is an intention here. It can be like this. Someone says some words in a place where there are other people. Someone says these words because he or she wants people here to laugh. An intention. These words are like this. When someone hears these words, someone can't not think about these words for some time. It's like, cats, anarchy, cheese, arse and keys. Cognition. I can't know something because of this. I don't know why someone says these words. Cognitive confusion. And then the whole idea of this, the social function. If someone thinks like this, if someone can laugh because of it, if someone can know that it is like this, people here are like part of this thing. If someone can feel something good because of it. So there's a sort of shared idea when you realize, there's no meaning, there's nothing behind this, then you feel that you're all in the same boat. So I've also, to use ethic terms, talked about this as pseudo-esoteric. You think it's esoteric, but really it's not esoteric. Everybody could know that this does not make sense. And I've also used the term collaborative jocular nonsense making. So then again, these two features might just be the beginning. All these laughter interjections and all these synesthetic humor metaphors. And I'm trying to find out now how common phenomena like these are and also how special they might be. I'm trying to, especially across Europe and also across Scandinavia, it would be very interesting for me to find out more about this. But the perspectives that I want to, this is my final slide actually, I'm still trying to think in terms of these folk terms for humor practices as cultural catalogs through which we can understand the interaction types that people have paid attention to. so much so that they have invented terminology to be able to speak about them. And the mission here is actually to try to understand the untranslatables through the translatables. This is an echo of Wierzbicka's understanding cultures through their keywords. And then this emic turn, I think humor studies need to stop just talking about humor and sarcasm and satire and try to move into what they might think of as the periphery, because this is where all the interesting things are happening, in my view. And this is where we will find the diversity that we might be interested in. And finally, I think it's important to have an escape from English as a meta-language, the big English words sense of humor or sarcasm or words like that, and just talk about, for instance, laugh or how people are with other people, use simpler language, because that can be translated and tested with speakers of English and Danish, and also speakers of other languages than English, and speakers of other Englishes than Anglo-Englishes. Thank you.